Okay, am I starting? All right, hi everyone. So my name is Sherry, and I am the director of AfroCrowd. AfroCrowd is an initiative focused on increasing awareness of the Wikimedia movement among people of African diaspora and addressing multicultural and gender gaps on Wikipedia and other open source. So what this session is going to be is the Wiki Global Check-in. On May 16th, 2020, in the early stages of COVID-19 pandemic, global quarantine and shutdowns left us disconnected from one another. We're still going through it, but in this early stage, the whole world was in some stage of some kind of shutdown or isolation by May 16th. So what we did during that time was we began what is called the Global Wiki Check-in, which was an opportunity for Wikipedians and others in the Wiki movement to check in with one another, leaving comments about the current times and what we're going through, as well as documenting what was happening in this first few months of the global pandemic. And it was also, as far as we know, the first 24-hour Global Edit-a-thon spanning the world from New Zealand to Philippines, all the Caribbean, the US, etc. So this session is going to take a look back at that event and so you're going to see a few images from during the pandemic. This one comes via author Discott on Wiki Commons. And it takes place in Cape Town, South Africa. You know, everyone has been told to stay home. That's the staging where we are. And this is the product of those ideas of using Wikipedia as a connection tool via the check-in idea. So this is what the global Wiki check-in looks like right now. You can go on Meta and find it. Just click after Wiki, click check-in, and you'll find it. And basically, it's a little different than, for example, something that you would see on Wikipedia. For example, let's say you looked up the COVID-19 lockdowns, and you would find an article about the lockdowns, maybe some photos in there about that time, and continued information coming in about that. What makes this a time capsule of sorts is that it was for a short period of time to capture the sentiment during that time from people all over the world. So many of us can use Wikipedia for different things. For example, it's not just for articles, it's not just for images. It's literally a tool that you can use to document all kinds of things, including your thoughts, right? So a way of and your perspective. So a way that this check-in worked is that we asked people from wherever you're coming from on the planet to add images. As you can see below, there are some examples of images that were used from as far as Italy, the United States, the Caribbean, etc. Sweden, I see down there, and you put that in this Wiki Time Capsule, which is called the Global Wiki Check-in. And what you do then is you would add what the world looks like for you right then and there, where your feet are on the ground and your world around you. So it doesn't necessarily mean that you would talk about necessarily, you know, what it's like dealing with having COVID-19, although that could be part of it too. You're really talking about what the world looks like to you from your vantage point at that moment in time, and literally look around you and say, okay, this is what things look like for me. And then we invite you to leave a word or two about it. Another thing that was different about this is that you would find your time zone, right? You would look not only for your country, let's say, but you would look literally for the time zone where you're based. So we didn't base it on your nationality of origin, for example. We based it on literally where you were at the time. So for example, you could be Mexican and visiting Cairo or something like that. So you would talk then about what your world looked like in Cairo, because that's where you physically were. So the idea for a 24-hour edit-a-thon, you can look at OpenStreetMaps and take a look at where we hit, what the kind of impact was on this project. So from this little image here, you can see we started from New Zealand all the way through the world. I think we touched basically every hemisphere and most time zones. So in that, for me, as an organizer, it was a success. So let's go back to the staging of things. So one of the main reasons behind this was this idea was not only did the COVID-19 lockdowns plunge us into a state of quarantine and so forth, but it also led to massive isolation in communities worldwide. And it also led to a shutdown of mechanisms and social interaction that are important for the overall psychological welfare of many people. So isolation can not only lead to, your basic issues and inconveniences of not being able to do what you usually do, but it also can lead to the psychological harm that isolation for long periods of time can do. So for the Wikimedia community, for example, it also meant a halt to the activities that we did in person, conferences, meetings, sort of like this one, which we're now doing online. At the time, even that kind of interaction was halted as we tried to figure things out. So check-ins are not a new idea, which is what this was. They have been used online to give friends and family an opportunity to connect with one another during natural disasters and other crises, using Facebook and other social media platforms. So this looked at Wikipedia as a tool against isolation during the COVID-19 lockdowns, an opportunity for check-in within the community as we restore connection and so forth. And so that's the beginning of it. All right, so I'm going to go into the mechanism of how this came about and how did we develop it. So this is a ridiculous statement that I've put on top just to illustrate some of the processes you can use if you're trying to figure out a similar idea, or if you just want to get started on something, whether it be a time capsule or 24-hour edit-a-thon or anything else. I think this process can be useful for anyone who's just trying to get started on a ridiculous idea. First, I think it's important that you have ridiculous ideas, that you try things that don't necessarily have a mechanism for you to use. Then you have to believe in your ideas. Thirdly, I feel that you should try it out. Why not? Why give yourself a reason not to do something that you think maybe you could try and do? Fourthly, I think you should enjoy it. That improves your ability to keep going with it, even in the case of obstacles and everything else. And of course, find like-minded collaborators. And when all else fails, I believe you should just go ahead and do it anyway. Because once you do it, then you'll figure out if it's something that you can go forward with. So what I mean by imagine ridiculous things on a regular basis, often we're stopped by, oh, this is a ridiculous idea. That's what we tell ourselves in our heads. Often it's said by others. But more importantly, if you say